These are obviously two teams where even you guys couldn't decide who's going to come first and who's not, which makes my position of being like, I just want everybody to have fun, a really good position
just want
to have.
To have a really good
That's
time.
what I want. Good time. And there's no better time than Cafe Dostoevsky.
No, absolutely not. You can see all the players down there in the chat.
I know.
I mean, look, good luck, have fun. What we get in Europe a lot is a lot of the players now, they say, have fun, but no luck.
Have fun, no luck.
But here in APAC,
anything,
we still have some wholesome.
I like, I'm just going to make a quick mention. The predictions thing is really good. As we were testing the thing, Thatcher's gone. Oh, that's no surprise. As we were testing the thing, they actually put Dez's prediction rate at 0. I think they could just probably keep that from production.
I think it'd be really funny if he's wrong, because he... oh, wow, okay, we're getting some...
Thatcher's the first one gone. That's familiar. That's like that warm jacket that you put on at the end of a long day now. Capitao gone as well. Again, pretty common for Xavier. 2, you're looking at Cafe. You're looking at those tight, narrow passages. You're looking at the kind of breaking across the top floor. Obviously, the old traditional take on this for the first 2 floors, the top 2 floors even, is to break in towards the cigar side, is to break in towards the top of red stairs, and then go from there. Capitao, obviously, very... He's a big help.
The interesting thing that you have to remember about that as well is the fact that when you've got a player like Chloroform on the side of FAV, who takes on very much that flex role, he plays the Capitão a decent amount. If you can deny that to him, especially being that player who's really stepped up of late on the side of FAV, then that could make Xavier's life a little bit easier. Wamai's obviously joined there as well. It almost kind of negates the need for that an original ban, because obviously he's a really big counter to the Capitão, and finishing things out there with the Maestro.
That makes sense. Maestro, I don't know if it's just me, but swinging that Alder around on this map, there's so many fantastic
You like to swing your Alder around too?
Swinging the Alder around Dostoevsky and seeing what results out of the end of the bullets as we go into the first round of the first game of this fantastic show. Reading Room and Fireplace, we're going to set ourselves up for the pace, not starting with a familiar bar on the top floor. One thing as well with the Thatcher, I don't know if you find it too much in this region, and you'll have to correct me here, little Miss Expert, is how locked in does bar become? Because what you often see is when Thatcher's off the board, Kitchen even becomes a fortress for teams to try and penetrate, and it really takes some decent shield play or some very coordinated vertical to even begin to crack that egg.
Well, here's the thing that you have to remember, Fluke, because this is APAC and there are no rules.
Okay.
No, I mean,
awesome.
these have been, especially when you look at FAV, it's one of the more coordinated teams that I think you find in APAC, especially of late as we've looked into the second phase. So it's something that you would see a little bit more than be able to coordinate in situations like that. And actually just having a look back on, you know, they're going to be starting off here on the defense. They have played this site a grand total of twice.
Oh.
They've won once and they've lost once.
It's very often the tertiary. It's, for a lot of teams, it's their third place. But to be honest, one of the things that was cited by our fantastic analysts was that you're kind of looking at teams that like to hide things until the very end play days. Teams that really, they're burning, they're running on surprise, or they're waiting until the very end. Talking of surprise, here's the dance of Spawn Peakery. Is it going to lead anywhere? No, no bites, because it's very well predicted. And talking of, there's a shield, and he is slowly making their way through.
Well, I mean, we've got shields on both sides here, because Shin on the side of FAV is also going to be rocking the Clash. So this is a very APAC thing as well, Fluke. They like their shields very much, and when we look back at certain games, especially that Xavier played on Clubhouse particularly, we've seen that kind of clash of the shields come out before. Clash, no pun intended. And obviously also you have to bear in mind as well that the Echoes there, FAV have actually got a decent amount of intel on their side. They've also got this C4 ready to go. Placing that there on the hatch is actually super interesting because he knows, of course, that the player's going to want to come in. And there you go. That is straight away your Maverick deleted as he begins to open it up.
Well, Afro is one of those players where you kind of looked at the stats going into this, you looked at seeing what he can do, and now we're getting like that taste of it. We're getting the example. A quick drop down to the top of the red stairs there as they start to try their assault. As I said at the very beginning of this, this is the familiar way of pushing towards this middle floor. As you get control of the top, you make sure you've got all that verticality, all that huge play space, and obviously the big important hop over towards pillars under your wraps, and then you go from there. Unfortunately, losing your Maverick and your Zofia very early on isn't the best way to kick this off. Scatman's going to wait and not know of Afro just sitting below as they play a very dangerous form of building a totem, and Red Sun's going to give the call almost instantly to the Hibana, you assume, and then from this you would expect to close down. There is an Echo drone not too far away on the shoulder though, so he's far from alone.
There's so much less support there for the Monty as well, as you lose 2 of those players so quickly and jumping straight in. We spoke about Scatman making a load of these crazy jumps, not with a shotgun this time, but he still was able to bring Afro down in the endeavor. Valkyrie gone, and that's also your top player on the side of FAV Gaming. Just a minute left, and Xavier are going to push into the site.
You can see the Clash has rotated back down as well. It's going to be the battle mano a mano with shield to shield as they just try and stem the flow of bodies into reading room. They're trying their best to dissuade whatever anyone wants to do on this doorway, but obviously with the charges going from the Xavier, it's going to make getting through this Clash a little bit tougher than it otherwise would have been. With only 40 seconds left on the board, he's just going to try and force and man mode his way in to the building, goes for the melee and goes for the legs, but can't quite land it. The cover is there. Chloroform with DCH picking up a quick trade and hiding in the corner. Scatman from nowhere has swum this round into a 2 versus 1, all down to Shin and no one left as Xavier lock in that first round.
And I was thinking, Xavier, they lost a decent amount at the start there, and so many of those members of FAV looked safe on the site because you had the Clash there, they had that distraction. Well, as soon as that influx came in there for Xavier, and suddenly you've got 3 of those players going down very, very quickly. Shin left on his own. There's only so much you can do, and this is one of the things that we expect to see from Xavier, is this incredible aggression that the team are able to bring out. We spoke about DCH at the start, and he was really the opener in that altercation there. But when you've got everyone else behind him, together, they can be unstoppable.
So the swap there, the Clash is the bait and switch on this bar hold now as Zafir goes to Zafir. Probably concerned about the Clash, to be fair. They hesitated. They hovered over a couple of different tastes and then went, nah, probably Zafir's good here. Obviously, I think one of the things that you could cite a little bit too, as you said, they've only really played reading twice across everything that we've seen so far. Having an idea and making it run, and then having the backup plans and making those runs, it's something where, yeah, you can test, you can scrim, you can prep, you can practice, but when it comes to game day, those little holes, those little kind of advantages that other teams can find and put pressure on, you don't really know how leaky your boat is until it's being filled with bullet holes. And unfortunately, there was a very big leak in the corner of that hole.
A bit, just a bit. They went sinking down just like the Titanic. And the thing is, they mentioned on the analyst desk at the start there that FAV Gaming do have a defense that is significantly weaker than their attack. And it's something that we did see on the last play day of stage number 1, and how Xavier were able to just pull apart those tiny little cracks in the armor. So whether or not they'll be able to do that again this time is the question, especially as FAV have changed up significantly how they're going to be running the defense. We've got the Oryx and the castle, of course, so they're going to have to expend a lot of that utility to get through those barricades and obviously give away a lot of their position in the process.
Now, obviously, prepping that castle with the 11 hit is going to make any kind of surprise motion towards the cigar push or on the opposite side and towards Piano very, very quick into the punch. They're looking for a burst of aggression against what Xav might be able to offer. They're going to kind of say, well, here's a bit of space. Take it. Oh, ha, 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 you've fallen for my ruse. As they swing around and pepper them with any bullets that they can get a hold on. At this point, though, what we've seen from Xavier is even when they're 2 bodies down and slightly a step out of rhythm with the pace, they're able to swing motions back into their favor. Whether it's from the kind of start of the push here with Red Sun on the Muncie, which seems yet again to be leading kind of the motion, or obviously the intelligent fragging of DCH. Either way, Xavier have a backup plan, and it seems very good at just being able to pop it at the drop of a hat.
I'm very intrigued by this positioning here in Cigar. Obviously very aggressive here from Shin and number 2, and that's why we're seeing Shin having to change his position, but it's going to be Taipon opening things up with the kill onto Onigiri. Once again, that's your Zafir gone, and actually make that the Oryx 2. And things even out here for the man count.
It was a very bold play, bringing the Oryx as the intense counter to Monty. They tried to bait it, but unfortunately the ever-watching eyes, well, they were watching. Afro's able to get one more back into their favor and bring it back to a 3 versus 3 as they keep just a bit of a hold in terms of the actual floor itself, and there's still a lot of work left to do here for Xavier. This is obviously the standard first site to be held. It's a very strong, stoic bit of masonry that becomes quite tough to start to dig through if you really want to find a comfortable, confident plant spot without, well, as you see, all of these many tight cross angles, all of the openings across the center. It's a crisscross maze of death, and unfortunately not even DCH can find full comfort here yet.
Well, they are trying to open up the wall there so they can head on in towards Piano, because They know they've got to move around that way. They have the Monty in the way to try and prevent this potential crossfire and this angle that's being held by Afro across the bar. If they can make their way around, especially as they know someone isn't there. But ECH is actually making the fun in the process, but he's going to be taken down by Afro.
Now it's just a little bit of hurried movement as Maverick tries to finish some artwork he did before, but unfortunately, well, they still put on a couple more pounds in this quarantine. Looks over to the corner as the push towards White Corridor goes, and the grenade is going to not quite land, actually. It bounced back. Monty's in the smoke, sticking the shield as best he can, but it was caught as the close push comes in. It's all down to the Maverick, who couldn't find the alternate angle. Swings onto one, but it's a frag game now in a 2 versus 1, and there's nowhere left to go. FAV bring it back to level pegging.
2 of those attempts there to be able to get the diffuser down, and both failed. FAV Gaming's very aggressive defense at the start was a big risk, and they lost both of those players who were playing in Cigar. It's something that we have seen in APAC before, where players have chosen to play in front of castle barricades, where if they don't get taken down, they don't have a rotation that you would otherwise have available to. And that is what they had there. They had to play in there, and they had to go for those aggressive plays, and it didn't work out for them. But as soon as Xavier then tried to move on forward, the push in from FAV, or not even, it wasn't even a push in, it was just their ability to gun down those players who they needed to get, i.e. the people planting the diffuser. They made it work. And then suddenly you've got to go for another attempt to plant the diffuser, and you've got fewer members on your team who can provide that protection, who can really do much about it. You use the smokes, but smokes won't save you from bullets.
Yeah, it's the thing I said there, is obviously, even though they were in an even count, it was a 3 versus 3, the masonry, the kind of angles that you can play on your defense really work in the defender's favor in the situation. You can dig into the back corners, you can look for the long crossfires, obviously, from the opposite balcony on the far side. You can find a way to begin to really apply pressure without having to be in this situation where we could see the Maverick tried to alleviate some of the pressure, stem the flow and the bleeding, and try and put pressure on the White Corridor running along the spine of the entire floor, but in the same breath couldn't make it. They tried to do everything in the last seconds, and unfortunately it didn't work the same way it did in the first round. Talking of aggressive lead-in, here's Valkyrie opening up some windows and looking to try and get some external Valks. I only say on the fact that she's still got 2 in pocket.
I have to say, I think the last round was almost the confidence boost that was needed for FAV, because obviously they've come back to the same site they went to at first. They're bringing the same operator lineup. They're probably going to go for something incredibly similar to what they did play before. And I think they felt confident on that first round. And to be honest, it took us by surprise that Xavier were actually able to pull it out, because it was such a sudden rush at the end that secured the kills they needed. Well, after that last round, where things went a little bit better, evidently they feel ready and prepared to be able to take Xavier on in this 3rd round. Now, you mentioned Afro still holding on to 2 of those, 2 of the Black Eyes. He's still got 1 with him, and obviously he's not going to be playing under New Hatch ready for the C4. Don't want to give that away, but does mean that, well, I was going to say the Maverick is still alive. They don't have a Maverick this time. It is that Sledge, of course.
Yeah, they've opted for a slightly different prod and push, but that's a very dangerous ring around the rosies Afro is playing right now, and usually it just leads to oh-nosies. More drones are being dropped, and they're actually just going to nope out of there, and I think that's the right decision. You don't want to be caught unawares entirely again. They've struck very, very well at the beginning of things, but this hefty information game that Xavier's bringing right now it's kind of a double-edged sword. You're looking at, yes, you're learning, you're pushing, you're prodding, you're playing the defenders away from where they were originally, Valcam in the middle of the floor, but in the same breath, now obviously you've lost loads of drones, you've lost a lot of utility, there goes another one, and at this point Valkyrie's just trying to do drone stats because it's really feeding well into that MPX.
And it's also over halfway in through the round here, and a lot of these players from Xavier are split up. You have the players upstairs. Onigiri is actually going to start moving downstairs now, as just DCH remains. Not quite going to be able to spot out the Clash there. There's the drones being thrown in, and obviously Clash can't do anything about it. This is where they start to sneak in through the rotate. Can't shoot in through the shields quite like that. And Shin, of course, does have that rotate available should he be required to head back towards the site.
That's the worry, though, because that ground is also heavily falling into the favor of Xavier right now. If they can twin this push, as we know they are capable of, they might be able to make some bits out of that Clash, just as they did with that Jammer. Now it's the open hole that they were able to push and apply a pressure for before, which arguably won them the round. There's the Clash, suffering at the hands of the many guns that decided to go against there. It was a bold play, and the amount of time wasted, I guess it could have played very well into that. The quick trade comes out towards the side with Scatman and Afro taking one apiece, and now it's just trying to find your way inside. Last time it was a sneaky maneuver that came off, but number 2 is trying to make sure that doesn't happen again. A quick swing round, still buried on the top floor with the doubling up here of the Jaeger. In the meantime, Scatman is just going to put the diffuser down. It's a 2 versus 2. They know that they're planning at this point to bring on the round and keep it going. We're in a post-plant for the first time today, and one down. It's a 1 versus nobody. There is a fantastic clutch from FAV. Number 2, as I said, he was waiting upstairs, baiting, patient, took the drop, ran a risk, and paid out.
Number 2, the highest rated player in all of Japanese Pro League Season 11, who really needed some time to figure things out. Hasn't necessarily shown up in the APAC North Division as much as we would have liked. And it's looking like he's actually starting to make a name for himself a little bit on the board, especially as Afro is obviously playing very aggressively at the start. And so that means he is ending up in a lot of those early engagements, some of which he hasn't been able to win out. And they were saying on the desk, we need somebody else on FAV to be able to step up and be there with Afro. You need someone who can do that job towards the late round if Afro's not around to do it. If number 2 can keep this up, then regretfully, maybe Derry's prediction isn't going to be so wrong after all.
Let's see, I guess. Crazy. 2-1, FAV currently one step ahead, as you see those fantastic chibis demonstrating and helping illuminate the point. But it's obviously early doors, early days. We're a long best of 3 ahead of us, and a great experience to obviously see who can kind of push the endurance difference between these 2 teams. Obviously, the taste of flavors of these maps that we've seen haven't been the hugest demonstration. FAV, we've seen it twice throughout this, a 7-2 win and a 7, I think it was 2 wins, I believe, they've had across Cafe. We haven't seen it from Xavier, I believe. We haven't seen it from Xavier, so it's generally fresh territory for them. So obviously, it's one of those maps that it still statistically plays into the defense for a lot of teams. You're looking at these bans as well and how they can play around the teams, and it becomes something where it builds better for them.
So FAV have beat Talon Esports on Cafe 7-2, but they lost against Cloud9 3-7.
Okay.
So 2 of those Korean teams there. One of the things that I wanted to mention is I think it's really concerning here that Xavier so far haven't been able to pull it out on the attack, given that that's typically their best side. And on the game that they played against FAV on the last play day, it was the attack that brought them down.
Yeah, and I guess it's one of those things where you have this side that's cited for being so creatively aggressive and so dominant on that, it can become a bit of a headspace because, yes, okay, some teams are fantastic at their attack. They can really nail it and bring it on game day. But defense, historically on some of these maps, is ones where you have a little bit more leniency to be a little bit rubbish. Some things are less obvious under the microscope of mistake, and it becomes something where you get rewarded sometimes when you should be, and that can really dog down attackers. Talking of dogging down attackers, C4 works very well, as does Chloroform, just using his gun. The quick swing from Scatman gets the one buried behind Bakery, and now it's just a matter of seeing if they can get over the wall. In the meantime, Napew is, well, they're a little bit injured, it's fair to say.
Yeah, Napew's not doing so well. He will be able to shoot out that mute jammer, so that is going to give Scatman the opportunity to open up the prep wall, if that's what he decides to. But obviously, the jammer sitting there behind the bakery wall is still going to remain for now. It's going to give them the opportunity to drone in, though. Only Afro is currently sitting on site. He's there on the pulse. Meanwhile, Shin not too far away. So they will be able to flock in should they need it. And obviously with a slightly weakened Xavier, just 3 of their players remaining. Napew with just a sliver of health if they can win out in these potential gunfights, and this could be another round to FAV.
Yeah, they're looking at trying to find their way around. As I said, without Thatcher, this can become a little bit tricky to get through for a lot of teams. But again, there's no wall denial, so it doesn't matter too much. Sabana's going to start cracking open whatever eggs she pleases and seeing what omelette she can make, as Milosh probably judges it, because I've seen his Twitter. Looking for the close angles here against the hard destruction, but Pulse is going to be a bit of a surprise as DCH catches them on the close side rather than the far side, and that puts us in a 3 versus 2, though obviously with Napew still suffering on a flicker of health and a smoke still on the board. That is in no way comfortable for anyone to try to approach. Obviously, Chloroform has already used the C4 pretty well, but it leaves them with just guns as their aid to try and stop this push and this swan into the kitchen service door.
Xavier playing very cautiously, and you can see them getting out the drone as those pings come through. And the remaining members of FAV Gaming know that they don't have to worry too much. Scatman is going in for the plant, and that's going to mean Xavier have to move on forward, and if they can't catch out in the gunfights, as DCH proves with those final 2 kills, then it is a round that does go to Xavier. FAV looked pretty in a good position there, but as soon as they had to move forward with the fear of the diffuser going down, that was when Xavier were able to take the advantage.
Yeah, I think one of the things that I said at the very beginning is that I love to see on that site is a little bit more verticality, is having the angles locked down from above. You see it fantastically in Latin America. You see some EU teams very dominant with it, and they can control large choke points on the site just from being above it, and it forces the attackers to have to do more. And if we're looking at where Xavier is struggling so far, it has been on the timing on the roam clear. They're leaving a huge amount to droning, a huge amount to finding out that initial intel. As I said before, the drone work is going in heavily, and then they lose a drone, and then they send in the other drone. And it's a continual process of we're learning, we're pushing, we're shepherding. Okay, now we have 40 seconds left.
I think that's a really noteworthy point, because Xavier are very good at being able to take on these fights when they have the time to do so, and when they know there's a lot of players. If you put 5 members of Xavier in a room with 5 members of whoever in a room, Xavier can take that fight, right? They know they can.
Yeah.
But the problem that they're having here is they don't necessarily know who they're going against and where from. So they are spending a lot of time sending out these drones. They're continuously getting taken down. They're not going in from these multiple angles. You mentioned that verticality. They didn't choose to go in through Fireplace, and so they're heading in just through Bakery, and that really makes it quite two-dimensional. And obviously it worked out for them before, but they're going to have to prove it again here on Bar as they head on up. And FAV Gaming, they've made a couple of changes as well.
Yeah, and it's good to see the adaptation. Obviously, I'm curious, they're going for their locked-in cigar hold with the 11-punch castle yet again. We saw it, I'm going to say picked apart quite quickly, but how much of that was the bravery of a man charging a shield under an open hatch, and how that started to pull apart? Either way, FAV have gone, yeah, let's not try that again. Let's go back to something a bit more familiar. Let's not try the surprise tactics, which, to be honest, from them, they're a very reliable team. They're a team that they know what they want to run.
Well, I mean, one of the also notable things here is Xavier aren't bringing the Monty anymore.
No.
And so that means actually we got the Warden to look through smoke because they were going for a smoke plant last time. Where are the smokes? Oh, wait, hold on, they are nowhere.
Yeah, it's a very quick and aggressive potential lineup here. 4 frag grenades. They know what they want to try to do, and it's going to blow up all of the players from FAV Gaming and any shields they decide to use. We've also seen, obviously, a fair bit of bulletproof camera before, and those kind of, again, the swing on information that FAV have done. They've been creatively aggressive in that they're setting themselves up with these holds and doing things like that. But in the same breath, they have these shields to fall back to if they need to. They have this familiarity that they need to go to. And the last time we were up here, that's what took them the round.
That does also mean that if they do want to open those castle barricades, they can't just do it with the Caber anymore. They're going to have to use something like the lifelines there from Napier. And we've actually seen the Zephyr historically so far in this game go down very, very early on the side of Xavier.
Yeah, it hasn't really been able to have the impact that you could have from a Zephyr. Whether it's unlucky moments that sometimes do happen in this game, or whether it's just they're trying to tip of the spear them and they haven't quite found any consistency there. Well, another one falls. Red Sun, who hasn't quite been able to find his way into this game properly, obviously running some of the utility and the hard destruction. It doesn't mean he's inertly looking for kills, but at the same time, it's kind of the swing of things where you saw how taken by surprise he was. He waltzed straight in to Sagara, and we know has been a heavy hold from them before, as we see Warden run as far out there as possible, and here comes the split push. A bit of attention was drawn away from the red landing as they knew that Zephyr was in, potentially wanted to try and spring this castle trap, but in the same breath, they now have a bit more control. This is where I cited they didn't have enough last time, and why it fell apart when they tried to get their diffuser down.
Much like last time, the mute did go down early, but one of the really crucial things is it wasted such a significant amount of time here. Less than 30 seconds remaining for Xavier to be able to make this push, and they're going against 4 players here of FAV. There's going to be the opening of the castle barricade, and obviously there is this control over on the west side of the map from Xavier already, but if you don't know where those shots are coming from, then Taipon's going to be able to gun you down. Less than 10 seconds, and it's really looking desperate here for Xavier.
With Scatman the only one left alive and no time to do it, well, unfortunately can't get any further than that. The time is disappearing. through the fingers of the attackers, and even with the drone work, and even where they're throwing themselves into this intel, they're still being taken by surprise. Twice they were taken by a man just hiding in a corner with a gun.
I mean, it's like, so he runs into washroom, Type 1's in there, he didn't know he was there. Oh, it's almost as if they didn't have drones to do that because they either lost them all or they didn't have time to use them anymore. But even when you just go back a few tens of seconds or whenever it was, when they actually made it into Cigar, the mute jammer was there, but they didn't know it was there until he turned around and just happened to spot it on the floor. And it's just these kinds of things. It's like, you should know where these things are. You shouldn't have to be walking into a room and just spotting something. Whether it's a person or a piece of utility, you should be prepared for that, because especially in this current meta, the current way of playing, you can't afford to be wasting time you don't have, because you've got to be expending everything very, very efficiently. And that's not happening here. And I think another really kind of important thing is we're seeing someone like Red Sun going down very early. He's been able to get a decent number of plants for this team in the past. He's been very good at planting, actually. That's one of the reasons why Xavier have had quite comfortable attack rounds before, and he's getting shut down super early in this. It's like FAV knew everything they had to go for.
Yeah, and I think this is a very well-played game from FAV so far on their defense, because what they're doing is they've read Xavier. They're able to apply the pressure on this opener, whether they've just dug themselves in aggressive, unusual, locked-in positions. They're letting themselves go, this is where I'm holding, because what I'm playing against is the time. The clock is gone by the time Xavier have to push and have to try and close down, and that is not something that they're very good at, unfortunately, today. It's something that isn't quite landing. Setting themselves up now as they go for that final attack approach. Obviously the shift is the Hibana to the Thermite. Scatman's picked up. And, well, the C4 doesn't catch Red Sun this time.
I saw him throw it and I was like, if this works, and it happens a second time. But no, Red Sun knew better than that this time. Afro going for it a bit early.
Type 1 was just lying down. He's having a bit of a break. I think he got hit through one of the windows, went for a spawn peek and was able to crawl himself to safety of the Clash in the bathroom and said, "Help me, Clash, I need you." Now they're back, and now they're able to dig themselves back in onto White Corridor and wait for anyone to try and push up the staircase. Again, it's the verticality that's going to become an issue. Clash playing on this connector. She has a bit more support now. The hatch itself is locked off. They're not going to alleviate any of that as a close push into the kind of heavy heart of the site, but in the same breath, you know, they're a team with a lot of utility to break that open. They've gone down to only 2 frag grenades this time, though.
Oh no, only 2. Well, we'll see if they're going to be able to actually use them pretty well. That's going to be one of the breach charges. They're used by DCH. And if he can get another couple of those very efficient kills, then this could end at actually not too bad half here for Xavier. 3-3, I would say. Yeah, absolutely not terrible, but obviously they've struggled against FAV on this site, or just on this half in general, to be honest. Interesting to see if Napew's going to be able to prevent rotations being made from FAV, but I would argue they haven't been doing it that much. Afro getting the opening kill, though, onto Red Sun. I said he was getting shut down so early, but Napew's going to be turning things around there onto number 2.
Well, I made a joke earlier about Dez potentially being the next James Bond, but Red Sun is trying to put in his own request, it seems. Well, there's a death to a Zephyr charge. Afro goes down, a good UC utility, and that's a big operator and a big player off the board. Falcon Echo gone. Big spews information, and now more just left to the Aether and the Ashes as they're trying to find their way down. The familiar wall is being cracked open, but there is still this Jaeger up above. Low health, so he can't take anything too major if he's looking for a long firefight, but with the bodies closing down and pinged on one side, might not know of the rotation possibility of DCH. There goes another one on the site, and it's now a 4 versus 1. It was Jaeger alone upstairs, and now it's Jaeger alone on the entire map. Finds one with a great bit of surprise, but Xavier's there for the 3-3 cover as we go to the turn of the half.
You mentioned Jaeger is alone upstairs, and my first thought was, yeah, but he's really the only one who has any kind of firepower in this engagement. You had the Clash, you had the Mute. Yeah, you can shoot with them, but it's not the same as having the Carbine. And then on the other side, you've got what? You've got the G8, you've got the ARX.
Ooh.
Spicy. You know, the point is you had the team of gunners, 4 of them left, going against this significantly weakened Jaeger, and 2 other operators which aren't necessarily going to stand up to them in the same way. And I was thinking, in this instance, it kind of looks like Xavier have it. And they proved they have it. But now they're going to be moving onto the defense. And obviously, it is a time to potentially make some changes, turn things around. But both of these teams are attacker favored. Both of them. FAV especially now are going to be running on their preferred side after having a not bad run on their worst side. Whereas Xavier, I would have expected more from them on the attack, and I don't know if they're going to be able to hold it up on the defense.
Talking of people that are having pretty good games though, obviously Scatman 10-3, really kind of leading the charge there. DCH not much further behind, and they are, for me, obviously they're trying to bring themselves in and keep themselves into this game. When you look over to the opposite side of FAV, one of the ways you can kind of tell they're having a little bit more of a solid game is, well, the view of kills is generally a lot more balanced. Each of them has had these moments of being able to swing into action when they need to, but the translation of that to their attacks might not always be the easiest thing. It becomes something where you really get to see who is having their strongest game and where it can really come to fruition in how they translate it on the turn of the half. Taking this kitchen site, taking the ground floor site, which we only saw once in the first half, and it obviously went into the favor of the attackers. They're comfortable here, they're confident here, they're technically 100% here, but look at this vertical hold that they've set themselves up for.
Right, I was going to say it really looks like Xavier expecting to deal with that. You know, they've brought themselves the Legion. That's going to make it hard to jump through something like a hatch. They've got this roam going on, but also FAV Gaming have prepared to do a vertical attack as well. They've brought Buck along. They're going to be able to open up the floors on the first floor so that they can shoot down into the site, apply the vertical pressure that way. If Xavier can make this roam work, then potentially they can weaken FAV enough before they get to that point that they can't actually break him through. This is a very messy attempt at a gunfight here, and both players are going to be able to get away from that with their lives. But you'd have assumed Afro could have clinched that one out.
I know. Maybe it's the spirit of Jess and me right now, because obviously she can't be here.
Hello?
But hello. Hot droning. Love it. As they saw the pressure coming in there. And this is something we didn't see too much of from Xavier. And one of the things we kind of chastised them about was they were doing a lot of cold droning. Droning ahead, trying to push, droning again. Yeah, and it didn't quite work because they got shot in corners they shouldn't have been. Whereas here, FAV, that was a combination of guns and aggression. It was a bit shaky, sure. But the pressure, the pings, what was being applied to the Valkyrie, that could have been locked down in a much tighter way if things had been a little bit more tighter with the control of the recoil. Always tough to do, though. Obviously, when you're just a little thing called, you know, a mini major. Just a little thing.
I don't really know what that is, but Onigiri is going to be taken down there by number 2. And that means he can begin to move on down. Obviously, FAV had to spend a lot of time trying to clear out that top floor there because Xavier had so many people off-site. Napew's got to be the next one, and he does bring number 2 down, but he's going to be able to deal with everyone else. He gets 2 kills, but is traded out at the end by Typon, and that means he won't be able to continue on any further.
Well, a 3 versus 3, and they've finally got some verticality under their hold. Now it's just a matter of, the actual site itself. They're looking for concern and they're looking for fire that might possibly be coming from beneath, but as they steadily open as many angles as they can, we can see, obviously, DCH is being counter-aggressive. He's keeping himself alive, sure, but with a shotgun and an SMG, if he can get high and close, he can really take the legs out of anyone that gets, unfortunately, a little bit too dancey above the man. Maverick's going to start making his way in for the quick rotation here via Freezer, but there's DCH. He's trying to find every bit of aggression he can, and it might be straight into the hands of Maverick. With only 15 seconds and the diffuser now cold on the floor, that is the preparation we saw DCH trying from many different angles, and that's the aggression that has led very well to the favor. Echo is popping off in the background. Nomad is popped in the entrance of Kochek, and oh no, you are out of time.
That was straight into the groin right there, really aggressive. And I think one of the problems that FAV Gaming had was when they had to do things so late, like opening the wall, like sending in players from elsewhere, they didn't have enough people to provide the support. So suddenly you've got the diffuser on the floor on the other side of the map to everybody else. You had to spend such a significant amount of time doing that roam clear because Xavier did something that a lot of teams don't do, and that is continue having your roamers out and about after the 130 mark.
Yeah.
They committed.
That's it. And to be honest, you know, on a site like this, as I've said, you can play against that still quite aggressively. When you're above it, you can utilize it, as we see in Latin America, very well as the round is kind of in that dying throes. Okay, when things go wrong, you're in a bit of a tight spot, and it becomes very, very hard to try and bring that back into balance and bring that back into your favor. But hey, for Xavier so far it's worked. They're playing a mix of this time game versus what we've already said they are very good at, which is gun skill, which is the ability to put bullets into bodies. The fact that FAV are obviously looking at this dying 5 seconds and swung onto coat check to try and get that kill before they went onto the site, I guess is one of those decisions where at that point you've got less than 10 seconds. You're not physically on site. The diffuser is cold somewhere on the opposite side as well, so you're not getting that. So why not just go and kill this dude?
Well, that's exactly it. Now, the interesting thing here is Xavier have actually opted to run pretty much the exact same composition that FAV did when they were on the defense on this site, bringing in the Clash, and that's going to be going up against the Monty of Taipan. But FAV are also bringing along a Ying. If I remember correctly, that's not something that we've seen so far today, but it does mean there are 4 smokes on the board. So we can expect something like a smoke plant. And of course, Xavier aren't going to be running a Warden or anything like that. So not going to be relying on being able to see in through the smokes. No bulletproof cameras on their side. But what we can rely on is Napew going for a very aggressive run out there. Black Eye gave him all the information he needed to know, and that will mean that number 2, the Ying with that second set of smokes, is no longer going to be around.
Well, here comes the crack on the top floor. Monty's back on the board in the hands of Taipan, and obviously we've seen this operator have a really great showing, have a slightly less great showing, and then disappear entirely. And let's see if FAV can translate some of the earlier days, the early vintage memories of Monty from this cafe trip first round. Obviously, again, if we're talking about pace and we're talking about time being wasted, this was a site where I quite liked the aggression that FAV brought to their defense, that almost external turtle towards the drop, because you know that they're only going to be pushing from there. It's very rare for teams to set themselves up along the many windows on the eastern side. It's a very tricky situation to play in. It doesn't offer you a huge amount of space. Here, well, we just see a man get his head cut off over the shoulder of Clash, and she's going to pick up her shields and try and be like, hey man, why'd you do that? That was mean.
That was so weird, because they must have known that the Clash was there. They didn't do anything about it. They just thought, let's go for some X-Kairos. Well, she doesn't even need to whip out her own gun, which she actually did end up doing, but someone right there can just run along, be like, all right, I'm going to get rid of those. Let's get rid of that player as well, and, like, bye.
See ya. One of the things that I get a little bit curious about now is because this is the first time we've seen a Ying on the board, and now she's not on the board. And how much of that was the strategy, and how much of that is, is now I guess we've got to see if FAV can kind of manipulate and change the space. Because if Ying's on the board, she is a big part of the strategy. You don't, she's not just a pickup for a G8. She's not just the kind of player in that regard. She is the tip of the spear, and she's dead.
She was dead very early on because number 2 went down because of the run out. And so straight away, Xavier were able to secure themselves that security. Not to use one word twice too much, but they were able to get that security for themselves, knowing that that was going to be breaking apart the strategy.
Onigiri, hello. There he goes. There's Monty, and there's the surprise trap, and there's Jaeger taking a bullet in the face, but it doesn't matter because Scatman is there to find another 2 kills for his ever-increasing title and total now. For the first time, we have a 2-round difference and 3 in a row in the hands of Xavier as they find themselves creeping and careening closer to potentially locking this off.
Yeah, I have to say, I was a little bit concerned.
Were you?
Xavier going, because Xavier going into the, I was a bit.
Okay, well, let's talk about it.
We'll talk about it later. Xavier going into their defensive side, I was thinking this isn't their preferred side. It's not the side we've seen them do the best on in the past. And meanwhile, FAV going onto the attacking side, that is the side we've seen them do the best on in the past. And I was thinking Xavier have kind of had their opportunity to show the best that they have.
Yep.
And I think maybe I thought a bit too soon because evidently they've looked quite comfortable on these 2 defenses so far. Now, obviously on that last one, we don't know how much of that success can be put down to the fact that the run out happened to secure arguably the most valuable kill.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? You can't necessarily, if you're going for a run out, you just take what you can get.
I think well, that's it. Like, you go back and you're like, okay, well, I killed somebody from range. It's a bit harder to tell now, obviously, with the skills. But at the same time, in the same breath, oh, thank you, Stanton Y2K. In the same time and in the same breath, there was also something earlier that popped up from Heavens. The guy who does all the graphics.
I
want to take this moment
Shout out to Heavens.
Broadcast. Man, how does he make things look so pretty?
I don't know.
Give me your secret.
It's so good. I love it whenever he's send stuff to do with the graphics, and it's like, imagine having skill.
5-3. We find ourselves in Red Sun is picking up the mirror, and obviously if there was a site, well, I mean, you're looking at any site and you want to take it, but with the tertiary pick, with the third in the rotation, and with you looking at the potential of if you lose this, you're on match point for the rest of this game, FAV have to find something from this. They have to find some comfort, some solidity, because that last round, obviously they lost someone on the run out, but from then on, things kind of went from bad to worse.
You know what's bad to worse? I'm really upset. We're seeing some pulse shotgun, but look who it's not. It's not Scatman. That's not okay with me. He's sat there on the... Right. He's sat there on the red stairs as Capcan, the ranked warrior himself. Now, obviously, it could give him a great opportunity to be able to get some of these attackers. He's definitely going to be able to get a drone. He's actually moving down now, so no longer will he watch onto the hatch. But it does mean that he's not going to be there on the pulse shotgun, and I was looking forward to that.
Well, hey, it's the best of 3. We get that flavor. We get that taste.
That is so true.
That's the thing. And you're looking at, obviously, we've got Oregon up next, and we've got potentially a little bit of Villa.
Oh, cheeky Villa.
A bit later. So that's something where, obviously, we've got a full play day, a full experience to test these guys. And one of the things I said before is, obviously, if you're looking at a quick, aggressive burn team like Xavier, one that likes to pop hard and pop heavy, sometimes when you're looking at a long stretch of a play day, that can become a little bit weaker when you push yourself and you keep pushing and pushing and pushing. And we see it from a lot of teams, so it's a bit of a distance race today. And obviously with two teams that even you guys in our fantastic polls couldn't really separate, well, let's see if they can find some separation here. Ying is alive and able to take the first kill. Unfortunately, Scatman is the victim, but Onigiri is able to take care of Afro with Shin taking a huge amount of damage. They just push around the corner, and that's a whole slew of blue in the top right there to put us in a 3 versus 2. Monty and Sledge, all that is left.
See, the thing is here, FAV knew exactly what they were going up against. They knew there'd be a wide roam from Xavier that would be on various parts of the map, so they just all decided to come in together. Now, you said the slew of blue. They were able to get those kills, just Type 1 on Chloroform remaining. It's going to make it incredibly risky should they decide to try and put down the diffuser. Chloroform opening up the floor here. If he can see anyone, then maybe that'll give him an advantage. But obviously, Napew is all the way downstairs. In goes that frag grenade. Not actually going to be able to find anyone just yet. And FAV are really biding their time before deciding to do anything.
Now, obviously, one of the things we've said about FAV was they're very good at reading how Xavier likes to play. And they've been able to kind of exemplify that in the push. The sneaky rotation round onto the plant here, they might not know that the drops come down, but now they're well aware. Could be because we haven't seen Cafe from Xavier at all. It becomes a bit harder for a well-prepped team to do, well, their prep. When you don't really know what the holds are going to be entirely. Yes, they scrim. Yes, they have VODs. Yes, they have other ideas of how these things can play together, but there is a massive difference to an up-to-date roster of information that you can really bring when you're obviously generally an information-driven team. They were able to pull stuff with their defense, with their strats being tested. Here, when they're trying to test the defenses of an unknown entity, it's unfortunately just coming up with the wrong results.
You actually make a really interesting point there. One of the big problems that Xavier was having on their attack was the lack of information. Their drones kept getting shot. But obviously you don't do droning in the same way on the defense, and they've been able to play these operators like the Echo, like the Pulse that we're seeing on the defense now. And I'm wondering how much of a difference that is making to their ability to be able to find success here. I mean, we look at the last 3 rounds, all of these defensive rounds for them, they've been doing really well on. They're on match point now. FAV are just sitting there with 3 points. Derry is rolling around on the analyst desk.
Rolling around on the floor.
He's begging.
He's throwing his sheets in the air. Milos is trying to control.
He's just walked out. You know, he's walked out saying, I'm not doing this anymore.
Milos has gone after him now at this point.
They're going to cry together.
Yeah.
In the car park outside.
6-3. Match point we find ourselves on. I said it was 3 rounds in a row, now it's 4, and unfortunately the next one would make it not only 5, but the first map as well, something that has very quickly fallen into their favor here. And obviously when you look at where you're continuing into next, when you're looking at Oregon, when you're looking at a map where we have, again, a little bit more intel about Xavier. We've got 1 bit of experience, and we've got some in the same time of FAV as well. Both of them wins, both kind of close to the wire, wins a 7-5 and a 7-4 respectively. It's going to probably probably be a little bit more of an even battleground, I would say, in terms of when we see FAV on their attack, because the lack of information here, the lack of knowledge, is kind of building itself around this idea of let's go for Ying, let's go for these kind of quick strike pushes. We saw them obviously with only 2 men left try and sneak the diffuser in. It didn't unfortunately quite work as they were caught out around the washroom area, but in the same breath, it's, you know, what else can they really do in this situation?
I think the interesting thing here is the fact, you know, they've gone down to the bottom floor, but what we saw before was Xavier having a very, very wide roam that's extended all the way to the top floor. But here, obviously, they're going for the clash. They're playing a little bit further down. Obviously, Onigiri's up here in White Stairs. He's just waiting, but it's not quite the same as it was before. So that means that FAV Gaming might not have that same level of time wasted and actually instead have to face those fights as they get closer onto the site. Now, obviously, they have decided to bring the Ying again this time, who hasn't gone down to a run out early. So we could actually start to see the strategy that they planned to use before get implemented. Shin won't be able to implement any kind of plan, though, because Redson's going to finish him off nice and early.
Well, now with the Clash playing aggressively on the backside of site where they wanted to set themselves up with the push, it's again going to take a little bit of a change of tact in the hands of FAV. Something where they're in kind of internally working against the grain here, and everything is coming down to how well they can adapt, how well they can learn and move at the same time. They're obviously learning, sure, but unfortunately with your Habana and your hard destruction going off the board at the very opener, well, now again you've got to completely shift away, because last I checked, all of that freezer wall was well and truly reinforced. There's no getting in on that entry. You've got to look for other ways to try and find your way through. The verticality and the pressure and the shepherding can really allow and alleviate some of the pressure and spaces inside the site, but there's still some very tight doors.
That's exactly the point I was going to make, is you run this real risk of getting bottlenecked because you also can't open the hatch above if you don't have that hard destruction, and they haven't brought Maverick with them like they did last time. You can see them all moving a little bit closer towards the site, and actually a lot of this setup down here on the bottom. They want to be able to get some of those opening picks to make it easier for them to move in. There go the Candelas as well as the smokes, but there goes number 2. No longer will the Ying remain alive as Red Sun and now Napew add on to the kill count.
Well, it's all slightly falling apart, but Afro is able to find a double in and amongst the backside of that. And with Chloroform off the board, he's going to have to find the ace to lock it down. But Xavier, unfortunately, for FAV, lock it down first. The fantastic opening round there from a team where, well, on their attacks, they didn't look quite as assured as they did on their defense. And that's a huge swathe of momentum they can carry across to map 2.
At the very start, it really looked like FAV had something on Xavier that they didn't before. And Xavier came back to prove that wasn't the case. Very similar to what we saw on Coastline on the last play day, where FAV got nearly all of the rounds on the first half, and it really looked over for Xavier.
We're going to obviously go into the second map now in the best of 3 showdown. One of the things, again, that I said before, I want to see the endurance level. I want to see how long they can keep this high rate of fire, because the aggression started to burn towards the end there. We saw more jump outs, we saw more of that. We obviously saw in-map aggression and in-map aggressive defensing, but defensing isn't a word, but then it started to propel itself, started to propel themselves physically out of windows and kind of pick body after body after body, and Xav is not going to slow that down. So what we have to see from FAV is more heat, more aggression, more of that.
Well, FAV have played this map a couple more times than Xavier have, and Xavier do have some pretty glaring weaknesses on it themselves. You look onto their attack on this map, and actually the only site that they really have any luck on, I say luck, is the upstairs bomb site. They've actually only lost the attacks on the other 2 sites that they have played on. That does kind of make it clear. It almost broadcasts what it is that their problems may be, whereas FAV have had a little bit more variety, a little bit more time to practice and see what they can pull out. Now, these first 2 bans are going to be a Capitan and a Monty. Capitan, of course, we saw that last time. Monty, we did see some, you know, he came up quite a bit in the last map. Might as well, let's get rid of that guy.
I mean, the thing is, yeah, he came up a lot. On the FAV attacks especially. Now obviously they've banned him here and they used him almost every single round, if not every single round, I believe. And he never quite hit the mark for them. He hit the mark once, I'm going to say maybe twice for Xavier in terms of it. Yeah, they know what they don't want to go up against. And
nope.
To be fair, in the side of talking about teams that did well with shields, FAV did do very well with Clash, even though she was a constant for both teams.
Yes.
But Monty, I would say, FAV played it a lot more and didn't quite find the ground that Xavier did. So I think they said, Nah, get him out of here. Get him away from my Oregon. Kid Storms is where we're going to start our fire here. Again, a huge slew of information. We've got the Valkyrie on the board, and obviously the mirror to hold the lockdown, I say, as she's opted and swapped for...
Maestro. I was actually wondering if it was going to be a Maestro. You can put the Evil Eyes, have one in the attic.
Yeah.
Be able to see who's coming in through there, and also, you know, if you want to impact trick the games room wall, for example, you can have them based in Kid Storms, play as that anchor role. Really, really strong operator to have here on this site, so bringing him along, definitely not a bad idea. And one of the things that they did mention there on the desk was the fact that they wanted to see more of this Intel game. Now, it's a little bit more about Xavier, because obviously they had kind of problems beforehand in that aspect. But FAV Gaming, being able to have the cameras from the Maestro, from the Valkyrie, is definitely going to be good news for them.
Oh, yeah. It's everything you want to see. And I guess it's everything that we kind of want to bring together here. Locking themselves off in the attic, the Maestro cam, as you said, is going to be the big eyes there. The hold and the cross count are there to stop them being able to quickly move and manipulate across the space. You can't quite catch that one. And the shield placement there from the close window. So it's something where you physically got to get in and inside attic. It is the core and the crux of taking the top floor and taking the dorm sites this time round in the rework. And these are teams that are obviously well aware of this. Both of them have brought victories on this map before, one apiece. Let's see who can take it on the play day today.
So there we go. As I said before, straight away, Napew positioning himself here in games. That does mean he will be prepared to do the impact trick. He also, of course, has the holes in through the floor down into classroom if anyone from below decides that they want to be going in that way. But it looks like a lot of this push from FAV is going to start off in Big Tower. Fairly unsurprising. They're going to make good work on the wall very quickly. But we have some really aggressive positioning from the defenders up here. DCH holding very far forward. If he can get a kill, which he's not going to even attempt to, instead he's going to be running to safety and just keeping an eye on what's going on. There's that first set of X-Cars as well, which are just going to be shot straight off of the trophy wall.
Well, now Typon is going to try and get close towards the pressure on the back of Attic here. DCH isn't quite that far away, but they know they don't need to apply any intense pressure. They have the ADS to keep them alive just a bit. Only one, so it can only burn probably a certain amount. But obviously, with Maverick being a constant pick and a huge slew of flash grenades, it's probably not going to last that long. It is the core of your push on this top floor. It is what FAV know they need to apply pressure on, and you can see it starts here. The first gets the shield. An important part you've got to take out, something that you want to destroy before it even becomes close to have any pressure applied against you. Now you've got 15 seconds to wait before you can start phase 2 of this multi-story to push.
Getting into get some of that, and that's going to be a C4. That's not going to get anything.
That was scary, though.
Straight away. Yep, he managed to narrowly avoid it. He's still not going to be able to do anything really about this game's wall, though, because he's just being watched. It puts Shin in a really difficult position, actually, because, of course, his first set of X-Kairos got completely shot off. He's got Typon for some support now, but straight away going to be shooting in through. That's going to be the utility cleared out from that top part of dorms as well. And this means that Typon can begin to drone in, get an idea. Get shot straight down, just like Red Sun, though, as well.
Well, Red Sun goes down. Obviously, didn't have the best showing last time in certain rounds before, and it's going to start the trend here. A double C4 kill for DCH, looped over the top. Is going to be a big boon back into the favor of the defenders. There's another canister that applies the pressure back, and DCH finds his third for the round with only 15 seconds left after Owen Chloroform have to apply all the pressure and the talents we know they're capable of, but it's a very tough space to do it in. Chloroform from the double window gets one, gets dropped, and with the trade happening on the other side, Scatman swings the round to Xavier.
I mean, the whole layout of that part of the map really sets the defenders up for holding crossfires if there's enough of them remaining. When there's just two of you on the attack trying to push into that, it can be virtually impossible. And that's the problem there that Xavier found that they had. I think one of the big problems as well was simply the issues that they had with the hard breach.
Yeah.
When you're pushing into this site, it's almost like, arguably it's almost like Clubhouse where there's kind of checklists, right? It's like, we open this wall, we open this wall, we come in through these 2 directions, we push in that way. And if you can't allow yourself the opportunity to be able to get one of those tick boxes on the checklist, it's going to make it so much harder. You do find yourself bottlenecked, you do find yourself caught in crossfires, you do find yourself really struggling to push on into the site. And that's exactly what happened there for the attackers.
Now they head down to the basement. This is obviously a site where I'm sure you guys watching at home have seen that, oh, this has maybe changed a little bit. It was the old familiar, but now there's a lot more space around it to play. And what you'll generally see is much more pressure applied towards the blue side, towards the bunker, towards the central pillar, which becomes a bit of an aggressive dance as we start to see how they pull stuff together. Now, obviously, at the top, there's a slight difference in where the teams are laid out.
The logo's maybe a bit wrong.
But also, so is the win. So it's just because FAV and Xav have changed from where they were. Xavier were on the blue side last time around.
Just to be clear, Xavier are on the defense.
Yeah.
So you look out for those cheeky clan tags.
Yeah. They're also 1 map up as well.
Yes. Just ignore the logos. But yeah, no, it's obviously changed now since the Oregon rework. We do have Freezer. Typically, you have at least 1 player will be based in there. Freezer controls a really important part of pushing. Now, some aggressive attacking teams will choose to just rush down into the Freezer and try and clear it out that way. But what we have seen a lot of is a construction push, a tower stairs push, coming in through that way, maybe send 1 player in down through the laundry stairs to try and get an angle in through that other way. Now, what's going to make it really hard to be able to come in through that south side, especially through the Freezer, is the placement of those mirror windows. Because it can see directly there, it's going to protect those players who are playing in that part of the map. Now, obviously, you'll also have a shield on the other side. In this case, it'll be a Goyo shield, one of those Vulcan shields that make it a lot harder to be able to gain access to the player who may be in Freezer. And having a player there means that if you do start to push into somewhere like Supply, for example, they can get that crossfire across the hallway directly in. So it is something that you want to be clearing out. That said, it doesn't look like Xavier currently have anyone actually based there. This is going to be the first hatch being opened here by FAV Gaming, and it's not usually the one that you go for. Typically, the one in a meeting directly above box will be the first one, and that's what Taipon's working on now.
Yeah, steadily making sure that Electric becomes something that you can battle down and aggressively against. It was probably the big central part of how you'd push this back in Deer, and now it's something where you can, you know, play it as part of how you want to push across the entire face. They're obviously going to try and apply the split pressure, and the aggression doesn't quite go in DCH's favor. Comes after the triple last time round, but number 2 is to make sure that it doesn't go any further. And with a big gun off the board that early, with a huge slew of aggression and still a minute left, it's something that is only really going to play into the favor of FAV. They didn't have to shift what they were doing. Now they know there's slightly less work to do when push comes to shove.
Obviously a big first pick as well, bringing DCH off the board, given what his stats are like. Those smokes going out are going to give FAV the opportunity to move in. Mira really can't see all that much, and eventually you're going to have to take some shots, but with Taipon going down to the smoke canisters, that means the diffuser does get dropped. Number 2 should be able to pick it up, but it's all chaos ensuing now. The diffuser gets dropped once again, 30 seconds remaining, and Xavier are going to be losing players too.
Now they're looking for the intense firefight as the shotgun tries its best from a range it's not really built for. More bodies, more X's, and a 2 versus 1 with a pistol swing is something where Sophia picks her back up. The desperation on a man swinging a pistol round from a close quarters. Wow, there's another gun that Jaeger would be great with right now, but he's very limited and he's not seeming like he is. Oh, so close to some phenomenal highlight reel. But even then, a lot of pride in a pistol that went much more of a distance than anyone thought it could.
No, I really think FAV would have been very annoyed there if that had worked out for Xavier in that instance, and that does mean now there is 1 apiece. It was a very aggressive push in the end there. I was talking at the beginning how a lot of teams prefer to come in through the construction side. And what we have seen in APAC is, they hinted at it at the beginning, is sometimes you see the Blackbeard be brought in. It was Talon Esports who kind of popularized that in this instance, but DCH, fantastic Blackbeard player. Maybe we'll see that when they end up going onto their account.
Maybe.
But it obviously wasn't something that FAV decided to go for themselves. Now, actually returning to that same site will be Xavier. They have 6 picked onto the mirror, so they were teasing out a bandit there. trying to give them the idea that there would be some of that wall denial, but no. Doing something very similar. Now, one of the things that really hampered the Mirror in that last round was the use of the smokes from the side of FAV Gaming. Obviously, when you bring the Jackal, you have those in pocket, and it meant that you just couldn't see anything as those players started to rush the laundry stairs.
Yeah, and we saw a bit of manipulation of sightlines and space in the previous map, but unfortunately what we never saw from FAV was too much of their attack. Things got shut down quickly on the Dance of Cafe, and we never got to really see the steps they could pull. Here, with the control of sightline, with the smokes, with the canisters, with how they want to actually play, we're starting to actually get a taste of that. And whether it's because it's a map they're more familiar with, for them, or whether it's because it's a map they're more familiar with what Xavier are going to be trying to do and what Xavier are going to try and bring to the firefight. Either way, it's paying off so far. But last time we were 1-1 at the second round again, and I feel like it's another long one in front of us here.
This is really interesting positioning here from Scatman, because the smoke's typically not who you'd have there, but Red Sun's not going to be positioned anywhere. So Goyo gets taken down very quickly, and actually Shin makes that a 2K, bringing Napew down 2. The Vulcan Shield gets 1 kill, and Typhon follows things up. The trade coming in, and once again, this is so aggressive, with just Onigiri left. He doesn't last very long. That was a round that lasted about 3 seconds, it fell. I'm so sorry you didn't get a chance to speak.
No, it's fine. I was just kind of blown away with some of the motions that happened there, and this is one of the things that I said I really wanted to see from FAV. Aggression. At the beginning of the map, Xavier started to step it up on their defenses. They were trying to butt heads with FAV as much as possible. They were trying to find themselves into the firefight, and we saw a little bit of kind of trepidation, a little bit of let's be stealthy, let's be sneaky, let's find out. No FAV. Do this, because it's catching Xavier off guard. We saw it there as the smoke rotated back round. He got one and then was like, okay, well, they're usually quite slow and steady. Gonna reel it. Oh no, I'm dead now. This is what FAV are pushing and thriving in, and I want it to keep stepping up, because I know Xavier are capable of stepping up as well.
What I'm really interested in on this side is obviously we saw FAV struggle on the first round, and a lot of that was because, as I said, the issues they had with the hard breach. X-Kairos wasn't able to go off on the trophy wall, which in and of itself was an interesting choice. They didn't get the games room wall open, so there weren't that many opportunities for avenues of ingress for the attacking team. But now they've just had 2 successful rounds playing so aggressively with those rushes downstairs. I'm wondering if maybe they'll throw caution to the wind and try and recreate something similar. It would be harder on the upstairs. You have to give them that. It would be harder because of the nature of that bottlenecking, because of how little movement opportunity there is without going through those choke points. But you never know. Maybe they're feeling themselves.
Feeling their oats. 2-1. FAV Gaming, as you find yourself 1 step ahead of Xavier. Hark our minds back, and this is actually how you were last time. Then it became a bit of a back and forth, and then unfortunately it went downhill. However, obviously you were on your defense last time. You had a little bit more to work with. Here, you have stepped up leaps and bounds, and it is evident in the play. As I said, it's not to say that Xavier aren't capable of more. We know they are, and they've got a little bit comfortable and complacent. They seem to expect what is going to be coming from FAV, and, well, that's leading to mistakes. That's leading to them being punished. They've got to have their heads screwed on a little bit more. It's map 2. We know that they can step it up too. They've just got to do the hard bit of doing it now.
Well, number 2 has been showing up a little bit more, surviving a little bit longer so far than we saw in Cafe. And that's how they've been able to use those smokes very well, making use of the Jackal. If he can keep that one up, then that would be very great. And you can actually see over in the distance, he's found one of those members of Xavier. Whether or not they can capitalize on that is going to be the next question. Now, once again, DCH is positioned here in the attic. The shield not yet gone down, but those frag grenades will be available on the side of the Maverick once again. So maybe they'll be able to make that work for them.
Going for a spray and pray, but unfortunately they're not falling for that this time, DCH. Now, obviously, as you said, the shield is still up. We saw them drop it quite methodically and quickly last time, but then fell victim to a C4 double kill. They're not going to risk that again. They have been aggressive, sure, but they're not silly aggressive. They know the space that is comfortable and confident to take in, and this is no man's land. This is the most dangerous spot that you could possibly find on this map until a lot of other work has been done, so it's just a death trap to try and run in and try and charge through. through. Talking of C4, Red Sun, who unfortunately hasn't been able to get his teeth into this game as of yet, is waiting to try and bite at the top of the stairs. Shin is going to be the bit of aggression as it swings round, but, well, that's the response. A quick pop, a quick look over, and no X-Kairos. There was a bit of motion from Hibana there. She used that opportunity to swing round and try and find some escape, baits the C4, but she's found her way in, can potentially apply some pressure onto Walk-In if she needs to, but is instead going to try and take this again and maybe bait the pop-up.
You'd hope that if it is the attempt at baiting, it's going to work, because otherwise you really are just using all that utility. He knows the X-Kairos has gone in, he's going to be able to shoot it off the wall, and look, Red Sun is still standing, and he's going to be moving forward, and he gets the kill. Shin! You could have done so much more. Xavier following up, so much orange filling the kill feed, and just 2 members of FAV standing.
Well, now it's almost all over. It is now. Xavier keep their hold on dorms under their control and keep this map from very quickly spiraling out of the way. And a lot of that goes down to the kind of missteps, the misplays we saw from the Hibana. First of all, let me take a quick moment. Shout out Easy, who is observing this. Wonderful catch.
What a lad.
Love you, Easy. Arguably better than Hap, but that's a different Benelux-based story. Kitchen and Dining Hall is where we head down to next. And obviously, we haven't actually seen this. They're not going to try and dance laundry again. They're not going to get themselves clean, because so far, what they've been put through by FAV is filthy.
I'm going to say something controversial. I actually think this might be my favorite site on this map.
Really?
I find it really interesting because so much of it is about how showers is held, right? And you see some teams that they like to relinquish it early. You see some teams hold on for it with dear life, clinging their nails into the side. You see some teams not deal in a lot of wall denial, and that means that it can get open very quickly, which is something we've seen in APAC before. In EU, you're more likely to see so much be invested in holding the walls here in showers. In APAC, not so much. And then obviously you have to have this presence in the showers corridor, and sometimes that can get a lot of things, and sometimes it can get nothing. And so I think there is so much pacing in this round that is dictated by specifically how this one room is held, that can really change the fate of one of these rounds. And a lot of teams are very here, there, and everywhere about whether they actually like this site. And obviously, you know, it being the map's being reworked, people are still trying to figure out what it is that they do enjoy, what they don't enjoy. This is infamously not a very well-liked site. And so
Tertiary sites being well liked. What map do you think this is? What game?
Yeah, I like to be an optimist.
Yeah, okay. I'll let you have that. I'm not going to argue that. Yeah, it's the thing is
That's
as well.
what we call it.
Yeah, back in the day, before it obviously had the rework, it's quite funny how the extension to showers with the castle buying you space and what was the corridor that bisected where showers and where the site itself used to be was the general hold as well, with a bit of vertical pressure and some applied beneath. There is a nice view. There is an open door, and there is number 2. Just gonna wait. Just gonna wait. Hold angle. Let him come.
You know, it's like a jackal versus a castle. If that does turn into a spawn peak and it works, just retire.
Yeah, the Valkyrie was the one that was actually feeding the information, and I think they've gone, leave it, he's a coward. Knocked the door open, they're going to try and bait the play. They're well aware at this point that it's just they're waiting for the movement, using the time to get out of there, because they've got other more pressing things to do. Most notably, the pressure that FAV is pressing towards the site itself. They're up on the wall, they're trying to get some hard destruction done, but with Mute stopping it, Maverick's going to work a little bit of pressure and alleviate some of that. Scatman is close, but can't quite do any further. However, obviously he has that center core of the showers to manipulate, and he's also got the shield as the extension to use it to swing round. We've seen Scatman do that very, very well before. He's very good at swinging aggressively. He's very good at applying counter pressure and has full confidence to do it. Well, that van almost got blown up. Very, very well-made van. And luckily for number 2, very, very well-made number 2, because he's able to escape Napier, who yet again is just like, come on. Come on.
I mean, he's surviving, but he's still not really anywhere near anything, and there's less than a minute remaining. He's still got a player in security, a notoriously hard place to clear someone out from. Redson actually playing in the corridor isn't behind a shield. That could make him a bit more vulnerable, but still FAV have made the opportunity to move forward. They're not going to get it if that triple kill comes out there from Redson. I said he could be vulnerable, but no, he's not. And now just Chloroform and number 2 remaining. They're the ones who are vulnerable.
Well, last round we said Redson at the beginning hadn't shown up much, does some amazing play and gets the opener, and then from then on leads onto a triple kill here. Oh, Redson? Oh, he's arrived now. Be worried, FAV Gaming. Xavier have a lot of control here. The man who couldn't find any semblance of ground close to the building is on a fraction of health. Chloroform is suffering the same dividends, and now it is just Chloroform trying to find some way to put Xavier to sleep, but unfortunately, they are there, guns blazing, and now, once again, one step ahead.
I'll be honest, seeing where we've seen the strong points from FAV, it really was obvious in that round that they just looked lost on the attack. They didn't know how to approach it. They were so cautious. And this is FAV Gaming. Cautious? FAV? We've seen the best... Milo's just shrugging at me from across the studio. The best attacks that they've had have been their real aggressive ones.
Yeah.
But they didn't feel comfortable doing that. They weren't entirely sure where all these players were. They knew that there was something. Keeping number 2 outside forever because you know someone's upstairs. You know that there is a roam. You're not going to go out and actually clear the roam because you've got to have so much presence over in small tower. You've got to be going for showers. You get the wall open, but you're not doing anything about it. And then suddenly castle's in your face and guns down 3 of your players.
It's a struggle. It's a tough thing.
It is a
I've heard a famous quote about that, about Castle. Struggle tweets. About Castle and that gun being a gun in the game. You will know it at this point.
It is a gun.
Let's talk about Laundry. Let's talk about how so far it has not been a sight for Xavier. But obviously now they've been able to thread 2 rounds in a row. And most notably, as you said, FAV have slowed down a bit. They haven't had the confidence. I remember talking to Fonkers, the great man that he is, and they're talking about how they used to prep. UK Massive. Talk about how they used to prep with Secret, and obviously they did their run and rally. And he was like, he would look at a team, and some teams, you hold and you wait and you wait and you wait, and then some you push, you push, you push. And that was it. And you've got to look and you've got to see how you can apply that to teams like Xavier, how you can apply that as the aggressive push and the aggressive control that you might be able to take here, because so far, when they have found it, whether the pushing and the pushing and the pushing isn't their play or isn't their strategy, it's worked very well.
You know what I like about this, the change they've made? They brought the Kaid.
Yeah.
This was something they didn't have before. That means they have that hatch denial, notably. So there you go. You can see the security hatch, and you can see the one in the lobby there. So those go down into Freezer and Laundry, respectively. And that has been a really big source of the aggressive push from FAV so far when they've come to these sites before. Now, they have got a Maverick, but that does mean that he would have to be the one to go for those. Unless you want to go hunt out Electra Claws, but, you know, it's not going to work that way. They don't have a Thatcher, even though he's available. He is an operator that still exists.
I know
it seems that everyone's forgotten.
Well, okay. See, it's like the mirror theory.
Yeah, well, right. This always comes up.
Yeah, exactly. It's the mirror theory. Is teams prep. They have to prep one way, and then they have to prep a backup way if big integral operators aren't on the board. It used to be mirror. She changed the face of Siege as we know it. She obviously allowed it to step into its step 2 at the time, but at the same time, she then became an instant ban when bans kind of came through. So teams who had all their prep done for their A take, they had to pull back, and they realized, well, you know, even if she gets that through, let's just prep a B take without her, because she's going to get banned every single time. It's becoming a thing with Thatcher too, is teams are getting so used to playing without him that, well, they just don't.
So Type 1's going to be starting off on the meeting hatch, which is the one that didn't have the Electric Claw on it. And interestingly, we just saw Shin move into security, go to look at the hatch, and realize it was electrified. And suddenly now, that's a load of time that's going to be shaved off here for FAV. They either ignore the hatches and take the staircases, which is obviously massively risky, or they have to let Type 1 do all of this work. 1 minute remaining.
The worry that I always have with this Laundry push is it is so claustrophobic. It's so tight. You find yourself with the backs against the wall in a firing line, and they have a much deeper breadth that they can take to swing onto you and aggressively push against you. Last time they did it physically, DCH tried to run a marathon and get real deep and real aggro against them, but couldn't quite make it land. This time he's obviously playing on the opposite side, and Red Sun, who's had an absolute stormer of a power of rounds, is going to be the one that's going to try and apply the pressure from the opposite side. X-Kairos are blocking some of his sight, but the Mute Jammers are going to keep it locked down. Hey, Thatcher would be good here, but hey, it's against the turn of play. They're not going to bring him so far. Here comes the drone work, here comes the idea of pressure, but again, it's a couple of firing lines, and they're going to find themselves on the backside. The close push here comes in. There is one, there's the cold diffuser, and there's the second. A great swing round from Red Sun as they start to careen up, but it doesn't even matter, because Xavier lock it off on the opposite side too.
Red Sun on an absolute tear so far. He gets the 3K on the previous round, he gets a 2K there. He's doing really, really well, and obviously he takes a lot of that hard support role for the team. And we spoke at the beginning about how recently, in this last stage, it's really been the tale of the hard supports. Now, over here in APAC, when you have a look at the highest rated players, a lot of them are the gunners. You've got Hysterics at the top, DCH obviously comes up quite a bit, MV Taylor from Cloud9, another player you see. Those aren't hard supports. APAC is still in the you run, you gun, you have some fun, and you get a high rating. But Red Sun is, he's here and he's like, no, I'm sorry, no.
I gotta do some stuff.
I gotta
kill people.
You guys go on. I'm gonna get some blood on my hands.
I'll do some stuff. Now, turn of the half, 4-2. This, okay, to be fair, the 4-2 split isn't the most uncommon thing on Oregon.
No.
At the minute, it's generally swinging into the defender's favor. This is the common situation you're sat in. We saw it as a 3-3 split last time round on the last map for FAV on their defenses. But again, where they've shined the brightest was quite early on in this, and now we've just had 3 rounds in a row. If they lose this opener 1, which is on their primary pick site, obviously they lost their first site in the last map, it could really make them struggle with momentum. It can really pull it out of their favor.
There's a Thatcher!
I know. I saw you excitedly pop it, and then production put this amazing recapture on. Shout out to production as well.
Yeah, shout out to production. I was just tapping really excitedly on the screen, and I did like a full-on, I hate to say it, but a full-on like PogChamp kind of phase. And as soon as I did that, Flute looked over, and then the replay.
And then it just blocked. I'm assuming production did that on purpose, and that's why I thanked them for it. Because
you don't want to see Thatcher?
No, because I want to see you get messed with. 4-2.
Thanks, Luke. Production confirmed it was on purpose.
Now, this is the push that I said is generally, you see this kind of mix of pressure. You don't see in terms of region control going against the laundry side as a full dig-in. And for the reasons that we saw in that last take, is it becomes this firing line. You have to lock down Freezer. You have to find this split push, like a big letter L that you kind of slap down on and say, this corner of the L, this is where we're going to get control. This is where we're going to plant. Here, on the opposite side, towards pillars, towards the blue bunker, towards the control you can get here, is a bit more manipulative.
What I find really interesting here is actually, typically it's more normal to see the Jaeger in Harry Potter underneath the stairs and the Goyo more towards Freezer, but actually they've switched things around here. That does mean that if those players do decide to start coming down the stairs, Afro is in the perfect firing line to be able to get those shots onto them, and that's maybe why. But if you lose him early, that's a big risk. Goyo can't necessarily rotate over towards Freezer because suddenly you're in the middle of a crossfire and a load of lines of sight, and that could make it easier for the attackers to take Freezer control if they decide to move in that way.
I like that he threw his C4 there, didn't blow it, pulled the man back. Onigiri was a bit confused, then Tybon actually ran up to recollect the C4 and bring it back.
Sorry, I dropped this.
Yeah, I was just, oh man. The 3 C4s though is probably worth drawing attention to. They know how they want to play this, and it's an explosively dangerous range. They're happy to play C4s and explosives on this map. They want to loop those onto potentially the verticals, potentially against the hatches, as we saw them do on Cafe quite a lot. And so far, well, they're still all in pocket. And with a minute left, if the players of Xavier get bunched up or get caught out by this, that could very quickly pull things apart for them.
Yeah, Afro, you've got a tall task ahead of you as they start to move down the Freezer stairs. Is he going to be able to catch these players out? If anyone's going to do it, it's certainly going to be him, but actually Xavier decided they're going to back out a little bit. They've got 44 seconds remaining. They're going to have to decide the point of ingress that they want to take, because so far they've been chopping and changing, and you're going to have to commit. Scatman getting in that kill. That's going to be Type 1 and Make It Shin as well, going down on the side of FAV, and Xavier finally have their way in.
Well, now the pressure comes and Afro gets one back, but Oh god, Scatman is able to get one more and swings onto Long for Chloroform to finally put him out of misery. There's another quick swing for Chloroform, and the shotgun comes out but cannot quite catch it. Xavier find themselves one more round in a row.
That was really good. What was that little Scatman thing? Do you want to repeat that?
They can watch on the VOD.
Can't even repeat it.
They can watch on the VOD. 5-2.
This really took me by surprise.
5-2 we find ourselves in.
Yeah, it's a great position to be in there. And Xavier did really well. I mean, I was concerned because obviously they did keep kind of going one way and being like, no, actually, let's try this other route. There was a bit of an ebb and a flow. And then as soon as they got in that first kill, it's like they had people in position to take all these different routes. It was almost like they were trying to convince FAV that they were going to be coming in from various different angles, make them continuously switch their positions, which we did see with Jaeger and Goyo. One of them was Type 1. I don't remember who was on the other one. But either way, we did see them start to switch these positions out. And constantly, they had to be prepared for a push from somewhere.
Yeah.
And you get to the point where it's like, there's not much time left. They're going to have to make a push, but where is it from?
I think that was the thing as well, is if anything, it reminds me of the first round on Cafe. And I said the defense swinging against them and not quite being in their favor was something where, you know, they were under such a huge amount of pressure, and FAV just didn't seem prepared for where Xavier ended up coming from, which was the close dig in on the reading side towards pillars. They applied the pressure from there on Cafe. Here again, as you've said, they were looking at manipulating the space in a different angle, a different method. They were kind of flirting with the dangers of every single option and then decided to swing in aggressively on the final throw. And yet it came down to a 1 versus 1 through a very soft wall and a man with a shotgun that somehow didn't win it. That stuff happens. Unfortunately, this time, that coin and that buckshot fell out of the favor of FAV.
This is the thing. You can't out-shotgun Xavier. It doesn't work that way.
No. They made them? I heard that rumor.
Yeah, Xavier actually invented shotguns.
Invented them.
Yeah, that's what they did.
Way back in the olden days. 5-2. Valkyrie's getting, well, a lot of pressure there. I was about to say have free reign with the cameras, but they're not even going to let her begin.
Oh, nice view of... She's filming Bugs Life 2 out there.
Yeah, I love Bugs Life. She's
film.
looking for drones and looking for how they had the intel. There it is. There it goes. You found it. And now you've saved to go on your camera a little bit, but that in no way means that they're not going to apply pressure. If you compare this to how we saw the pressures from this last time, where obviously Xavier were the ones where they were stuck outside for ages, and they were kind of waiting for the motion to come before they could try and apply pressure. Here, well, not so much, as they just instantly, they're being like, okay, there's someone there with cameras, let's just push them. Let's throw ourselves at them, let's try and apply the aggression back towards them, and let's see how it goes from here. There's some predictions that have come up and come true so far. Milosh and Dez, unfortunately things aren't looking great for you, but hey, we got a long time ahead of us.
Ah, it's going to be good. Well, finally this wall's going to start getting opened as Shin gets a kill onto Onigiri. And I think one of the crucial things here is almost the secret weapon here for Xavier was going to be that nurse, right? Because you can kind of get away without her being discovered, or at least so you would hope. But with her going down that early, and as well with, I assume she was carrying the frag grenades too, DCH getting traded out. That leaves just Afro and Type 1 here on the side of FAV, going up against Red Sun. He's been showing up a lot on this map, so don't count him out just yet, even though he's low health, even though he's still got a plant, and even though these two defenders are above him and have that vertical angle.
Well, the pings are coming out constantly, and he's going to force them down into his firing range. Just hops behind a table, but the smoke canister is going to make it very uncomfortable. Pushes forward aggressively, knows that it's a split fire here, and knows they have the beat and the read on him for everything he's going to do. With 30 seconds, the time is extremely limited. The smoke canister comes out, but there's a great swing from Red Sun, who suddenly went from 0 to 100 there. Everything is ticking in his head as he tries to stick it down one more time. The audio is close, just on the other side of a soft wall. Afro doesn't entirely know that, but here's the clicking now, and there's the pop-up, and there's the pop-down. Afro, if you would have two players have a showdown with how things are going so far, well, luckily it was Afro in the side of FAV, because anyone else might have been breakfast for Red Sun.
I was impressed that he had enough time to get it down, and I wondered if maybe it was going to be a second bait, and that he'd be able to get that swing But alas, no. It does mean that FAV keep themselves in a little bit longer. They needed a little bit.
They needed something. They needed what is becoming apparent, obviously, is the kind of shift of momentum. Obviously that is the first time we've had a break from Xav taking rounds for a long period of time. It was 4 rounds in a row. Now there's something back in their favor. And last time FAV got around, they were able to string 2 together. They were able to kind of build upon it. And they did that before as well on Cafe. And it's something where maybe they're a team where when they start to grow in confidence, they can really build upon that. They can kind of get themselves back into the headspace, get themselves back into the game and go, here's where we can go. It's something that becomes a bit more of a struggle, I've heard, against aggressive teams, because their play style is a bit of frustration. It's nothing you can overtly predict in how it's going to go because, well, they're an aggressive team. They're swinging around on everything and anything and somehow making it work. Now, obviously, we head upstairs to dorms. It's the first time we're seeing it on this turn of the half after seeing it twice before. And, well, last time, both times it went to the favor of Xav.
Yeah, I mean, just having a look now, when FAV have played the defense on this site before, they've played it 4 times, they've won 3 times. But as I say that, they've won all the times that they played on Laundry and Supply, and actually Xavier turned that stat around already so far in this series. So clearly they're proving to be the thorn in their side, if that were not obvious enough already. Here on the defense, they're going for actually a kind of interesting lineup. You know, we're not seeing the Maestro that we would typically expect here. We do have the Smoke, a little bit more common, but obviously having a Warden and a Pulse, not necessarily who we would expect to see here.
Now, as they put their guns a-blazing and point them towards the rotation on Attic, they're playing it passively. I would say more passively than obviously you see a lot of teams play, and obviously more passively than what we saw Xavier play it before. Doesn't seem like it's been going to be that big point of interest, though, in the hands of Xavier, who are instantly getting aggressive onto the double window, setting themselves up, dropping the Valk Cam, and pre-firing every which way they can. There's a response. Expected, but the Claymore's there. It buys them a bit of confidence and solidity that they can start to work and construct on the opposite sides. The main being this main entrance window so far. Potentially waiting for some information, but if that Pulse gets that beat and that read on that window, well, that's game, set, and match for the man hanging on the window.
It's actually kind of interesting to be applying the pressure to the big window that early, and perhaps just sending a bit of a message there to FAV, maybe try and influence some of their positioning, which it didn't do all that much, but it could make them question what's going on. Shin's going to be questioning what's going on as DCH secures that first kill onto him. And this is going to be the game's room wall starting to get open. This is something that FAV didn't do on their attack. Shin really struggled, not even attempting with this wall, but having it open is going to give so much power to Xavier.
It's one of those things where you can aggressively impact against it, which we saw them prepping for before, but they didn't even try and roll the dice. Here comes the firefight, and there goes Typon, dropped by Onigiri with some great Zofia play. There was another body not too far away, and I'm not 100% sure why number 2 didn't try and get the trade or swing up on that. Obviously has utility potential as well, but maybe they just didn't expect such a lead in an aggression and a response. Maybe this will now play to number 2's favor. Dug in a corner they might not expect them to be in. We've seen that be a suffering point from teams before, and maybe it'll be a suffering point for Xavier again. Now it's a 4 versus 3. They have the man advantage in 30 seconds. Whatever they do, they've got to make it work. And there's the surprise, and there's another one. 2 positively terrible ones if you're a Xavier fan, as they find themselves either side, either corner. Chlorophine gets one more, and suddenly it's Scatman alone in the middle of a lot of guns. And unfortunately dropped in dorms, brings us back within only 1 round distance.
And just another disappointing example there of Xavier lacking what should be really basic information.
Yeah.
You shouldn't be running out into lines of sight like that, not expecting a player to be there, because drones exist.
They do.
Right? And so, you know, and just things like that, you should be able to have the information required to lead you safely to the place that you want to be, or at least give you what you need to know that you shouldn't take a certain route. It's really, really basic stuff there that Xavier fell to in Cafe, evidently fell to in this site. And once again, it's just another example of Xavier's attacks looking lackluster despite what we've seen in the past.
Yeah, now they find themselves obviously pushing against what is, again, a tertiary site. Meeting is where we're going to play for the first time today. They're not going to go for the kitchen hole, or they're not going to go for that side. They're going to try and opt to get the big room under lock and key. It becomes a bit of a thing again if you're talking about defaults and you're talking about how a lot of these teams like to push and apply pressure. Tower. Getting control of big tower, getting that lockdown, and getting that kind of flat pressure that you can apply. One of my favorite things to see on this site, though, is the very sneaky plant that some teams try and do. If they enter via garage and they just dig in that little close bit of wall on meeting.
Little cheeky sneaky.
Little cheeky sneaky. Which, if you can play that off and the defense aren't aware, it just, everything unfolds. Because it's not the most common thing to expect. And you know, if I see it, I'll be over the moon, is what I'm saying here. Don't expect to see it, audience. But when it happens,
Sending vibes.
It's well cool.
It's well cool.
It's well cool.
God, let's not. We've been speaking in these accents just to annoy everyone else here.
Yeah.
Dari's giving us a nice look. And it's been really getting on everybody's nerves
Yeah.
all throughout rehearsals. Oh, also the Australian accents to make up for the fact that Jess and Dev aren't here.
Yeah.
By the way, love Jess and Dev. They've
Love
done some
Jess
great
and Dev.
content.
Originally, the joke I was going to lead in on when I was wonderfully introduced by everybody else was that they tried to teleport Jess and Dev over here. And I'm the unfortunate result.
You're the combination.
I'm the combination.
So they got
Things went
spliced.
It's like The Fly, but it's Jess and Dev lead to me being the abomination.
Well, well, well. We'll see if Xavier's attack ends up continuing to be an abomination as well, as they haven't had the best of luck.
God
You
damn.
right there?
That's spicy. That's spicy. A little bit peppery. As they look towards the hatch, they know where they want to get open, and it's vertical control over, again, this beautiful bit of attic. It becomes such a core of these top two floors, obviously, as it leads straight into the beating heart of the dorm site, but here it leads straight over the top of meeting. A very nice place to try and set yourself up for this plant. And you can see, as I said before, tower control is your usual, is your default, and they're going to make sure that they have that all under lock and key. There's the opener. The one that's slightly higher is so they can get a big angle whilst they're on the T2 stairs to lean straight across all the way to the back. The other one, obviously, it's to go through, guys. You don't need me to tell you that. Deep grenades go to the opposite corner to try and get Type on, who has dug into the default plant, the kind of off-the-piste plant spot that I love so much. But the battle of throwables starts and kicks off. And, well, so does you hope the information Type on's going to feed and say, hey, guys, found them.
Found him, got him. Yeah, no, it's a good start here for Xavier, as obviously they have been able to get open that wall, but still all of the defenders standing. 1 minute remaining. They're going to have to clear some of that out if they are to hope to get anything. But as I say that, Scatman's going to go straight in with the diffuser, and he's not being stopped. It looks like it's going to get all the way in, and that's exactly what happens. Xavier start to get some of those kills, and now FAV find themselves in a post-plant situation.
Unbelievable scenes as he just crept in, got it behind. An unfortunate time for the rotation from Typon, but it went completely unaware with all of the firefight and the pressure coming from the backside. And this is a really tough retake, especially as there is a man on that diffuser. I repeat, there's a man on that diffuser. He gets one down, doesn't get the second. There is the angle, but it's completely pushed apart by Afro, who is doing more than bits as he battles back. There is a rotation coming through, which can really pull things together. There goes Afro, there goes one more, and there goes the planter. Unbelievable from Napier.
That's why you bring an F2. That's all I'm going to say. No, fantastic game or play or round or whatever you want to call it there from Xavier. They were assertive. They didn't hang around. They didn't wait to see what the defense were going to do, which was my concern. I was thinking, you haven't cleared anyone out. Everyone's going to be able to do it. It's a really open room. They're just going to shoot you. Apparently not.
Apparently not.
Apparently not. No, that was a great example there from Xavier. I was worried that their attack was starting to fall short a little bit, but they played that one really well. And, you know, things like the wall denial didn't matter so much. Bringing the bandits, obviously you did have the shock drones that were able to get rid of any of those batteries as required. They opened up the wall into meeting as required. They got those angles they needed as required. They got down the diffuser so quickly as required. I mean, really the big issue there was the fact that FAV didn't stop that while it was happening.
Yeah, and obviously you've got to give credit to the creativity in both the rotations. It was like the no you to the no you. It was they got in, got the plant down. There was the first no you of the unbelievable play from Afro on the Jaeger that pushed through, got a double. I believe it maybe led onto a triple as they swung around onto the stage. But then, oh, there's another Uno reverse card on the board. And it's come from behind, and it's come from this big rotation of Napier. And it's just a fantastic response to, again, expectation. They expected the close down to come back from the next side. They expected this pressure to return from Split, from the opening and the big old entrance of meeting. And what you see on the right is just, it's poetry in aggressive, bullet-ridden motion.
Now, I really like this that FAV Gaming is setting up right now, because it's like they're setting up so that number 2 can have this roam really to himself and make the most of it. Obviously, the castle barricades will make it so much harder for Xavier to be able to move around freely up on this first floor, as they will hope to open up a number of those like hatches, whatever it may be. Security hatch has actually obviously been opened there. It looks like Shin is maybe going to be playing in security. That's going to make it harder for the attackers to be able to rush down Freezer, if that's something that they want to do. The lobby hatch has been reinforced, so that's going to be an opportunity. But Afro, goodbye to your castle. The barricades remain, but the player does not.
Wow, that was a very quick take, and whether Afro was caught entirely unaware whether that was a firefight, either way, you cannot give DCH an inch for they take a mile, and the mile is usually from your skull. Now that's a big operator off the board and a big player, because obviously we've seen Afro do a lot. Red Sun, however, decides to keep it even and blow himself up.
Well, you know.
It's fair, isn't it?
He's been doing too much for the team. He's got to try and even it out, especially as we are on match point, right? You know,
you're allowed that.
Make it exciting. It's a best of 3. You want to make the most of it, right?
Yeah. Now, obviously, it's down to Xavier to try and apply the collapse and the pressure that they need to. With Maverick off the board, well, that means that some hatches and some angles might be a little bit tougher, but you've obviously still got Hibana, and you still have a huge amount of gun skill. Oh, and who's that guy? It's Thatcher. He can do great work if he needs to try and get control of these jammers and, you know, try and lock down the hard destruction, the hatches, without having to be too hyper-aggressive. Talking of, number 2, chilling, waiting, hanging about.
I like his positioning a lot. It might go to waste a little bit, as obviously Hibana's downstairs here, opening up the wall from blue, and that means there won't be that attention being paid onto the laundry hatch, which is obviously what number 2 is waiting for. He wants to be sure that that's not going to be done, and that none of that hard breach is going to be opening up the hatch. Instead, so much of the attention is already placed downstairs. Xavier, 4 members on the board, but going up against 4 themselves. Number 2 being incredibly low at this point, though.
I want to lean into my screen right now and just like getting really close. As the diffuser goes down, that's the moment you probably should stay on that bullet hole, because that's when it could have really got a kill. One apiece. In the meantime, we're in a post plant, and it's a 3 versus 1. Onigiri tries and unfortunately fails to dance around the pillar with a pistol only left. As FAV, they collapse back in, this time successfully, and keep themselves 1 round away, but still 1 more left to do if they want any hope of staying in this APAC major.
Yeah, managed to claw themselves into surviving the match point, unlike what happened on Cafe Dostoevsky, of course, but it's still very, very close here. Obviously, if they lose this map, they lose the series. Xavier already have 1 under their belts. So, kids' dorms, that's going to be the next one that we head on up to. FAV look like they're going to be playing a lot more standard. You know, earlier on in this half, we noted how they brought a Warden and a Pulse.
Yeah.
And it was a little bit obscure. They did actually win that round.
They did.
But it was still a little bit obscure this time. Well, actually, I look back and Pulse has been 6-picked on. But still, you actually have all of this extra information now, because not only do you have the Evil Eyes and the Black Eyes, but you also have the Cardiac Sensor, which really, to stay consistent, should be called something eye. Wall Eyes.
Cool Eyes.
What?
Say Cool Eyes.
Yeah, because only cool
it's
people
cool
have
eyes.
them.
It's Ace. Decade. Dockerby, she's on the board for the first time. Dockerby's on the board for the first time. And I think it's a very good pickup here from Xavier. A, it's a very good gun, but B, look at the struggle that they're having in just getting the tiny last bit of pressure that they need to apply on the defenders when they're dug in to cause them to fall into the firing line. We've seen it time and time again, as they know exactly where the FAV players are, but they need just a little bit more to allow them to swing round, to allow them to just push them out of their position, make them feel uncomfortable, and maybe take them by surprise, because it's how well known that they are that they're in these close positions. If they can get a semblance of swinging in and taking them by that surprise, Xavier can lead behind that very, very well.
I think it is a very interesting thing as well, because obviously Xavier, we've noted a number of times some of the issues that they've had with gaining intel on their attacks. Obviously Dokkaebi brings a fairly unique way of gathering intel that means it's not just about shooting a drone that someone throws out, you actually have to kill the person themselves. So that means that, you know, Napier, if he can win out these gunfights or receive some protection from some of the other players on his team, can last a little bit longer and also be able to provide more to the team, especially if they're going to be playing aggressively, like you said. Starting things off with droning, of course, they want to be sure that there's none of that roam game that's being brought out by the defenders, and that will give them a little bit more assurity as they start to move in.
Popping the defaults and heading round on the far side means that they can try and get some of the control that they need over this map. Something that we've consistently talked about when I talk about defaults is the information game that we've seen from both teams. It is much better controlled, I would say, on this map from both teams. Obviously, Cafe was a bit more of a wild child, but here, the use of droning towards the economy of the drones definitely much better from both teams. They've been able to not completely throw them away in the desperate hope of finding people, but hey, you can also just do that. Napier blows the head off of Afro with a very big gun that, well, that reveals the 6th pick.
That's certainly one way of looking at it, but none of these players are going to be stunned out here as Onigiri sends in the lifeline, and that means Xavier can begin to move in through Attic. I'm very intrigued as well by the fact that Shin's not really anywhere to be found, Red Sun neither, as he gets traded out there, and it's a constant backwards and forwards right now. In fact, Shin is just one of those remaining players there with number 2. You see, he's going to be using those cameras to be providing the information over to his fellow comrade as they try and defend this side against the 3 incoming players, but Scatman's getting down the diffuser. This could be it.
Well, 3 rounds in a row, we've seen the diffuser go down, and Scatman goes down too. Shin, with a big gun that kept on pressing and pressing and pressing, is able to find something, but the calls go out. You can see the diffuser is in a very hot situation right now. Both teams either side as they circle around it and see if they can just try and close the gap and close the distance. Flash grenades go off. Best time to use your utility. Unfortunately, it completely catches number 2, but nobody else does. Number 2 somehow survives. Swings on the shotgun, but Napier swings back, and Xavier swing their way up through this bracket.
Fantastic game there between these two teams, and I think even though it was a 2-0 there to Xavier, what we did see is a significant amount of fortitude, amount of pressure, aggression come out from FAV, and a lot of really good gameplay that just simply got outshadowed by the end.